As far as Burton, he's a good kid. Not a bad kid. Doesn't go out. Doesn't do all. Don't run the street. So it's not anything off the field.
Okay.
It's just that he's really laid back. He's not a Des Bryant type in practice. He's really laid back.
We got a Amari Cooper situation.
He's at the back of the line. You know, when it do the drills.
Right.
He not a great practice player. A lot of scouts came to practice and they saw he was not he did not turn it up in practice. And so that's the only thing he could think of. He's dynamic when the lights come on, as you saw, but certainly not a problem child. Come from, a poor family, but just kind of just laid back, just a laid back kid. He's not a dog in a sense. And when I talk about dog, I'm talking about, he's really goes after it, not necessarily a dog type player, but
it's interesting to me.
It better be interesting
because I guess you can't let play style determine what you think somebody's personality is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would think the guy who, out of all the top receivers in this class, once the ball's in his hands and it's your job to tackle him,
right?
You'd be like, that's the dog.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right. So he has a Debo. He says, he's a running back receiver. So obviously he's a receiver, things to be refined, kind of like Debo. He needs to be, taught how to be a professional. He needs to go somewhere with a number one receiver that can teach him how to be professional. But he's not a bad kid. He's just laid back, and his body language is not what you want. And again, he's at the back of the line on drills.
Well, that goes to the point.
And your number one receiver should be at the front of the line. You don't want him at the back of the line.
You're going to visit him.
And he said a lot of scouts came to practice this year, and they saw it.
But that goes back to your point where you were saying when you watched him on film, you would see at points of time in the game where he was just like, the ball would be like not be really there, and he kind of like a little bit lackadaisical going to get it.
Yeah.
And I was defending it like, maybe sometimes you look around and you're like, man, I'm not running cardio out here today.
But he do that in practice.
But he do that in practice. So that when you see it in practice and you see it on the film at times, you start putting together, and maybe you're saying this. The term at times comes out as lazy.
Yeah.
He's guy's not a lazy guy, not a good practice player.
Yeah.
Lacks that dog that you.
But the talent is
the
talent is there, and he can be a special player, but he just needs to get with the right people and get around the right people, right around organization, the right system to get that out in the field. But he's not a bad kid, he's not a problem child. It's nothing that you're waiting for the other shoe to drop that something bad is coming out on him.
It's more of a hey. Wake up.
Can you wake him up? That's my question. I mean, because the one concern, to your point, Jesse, with him is finishing routes. It's like, oh, hey, our route's not coming my way. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I wonder, too, with the team that wants to run the ball, and I actually haven't watched him as a run blocker, frankly, but like that doesn't seem to tell me that he's going to be a guy, I'm not getting the ball this play. I'm going to drag this guy 10 yards downfield.
Here's a part that can help him out. Because when you get into the league and you kind of have that – see, when you're the guy – when you're the guy and the rest of the guys on that team
are following you
or not as talented as you, they know that the rest of this roster sucks. No one's really gonna step to you and be like, "Come on, bro! Like you gotta step it up and do more." You know what I mean? They'll let you be in the back of the line because,
especially when the lead receiver on Missouri last year, I don't know if you guys know this name. He's actually from Allen.
Theo Weiss.
It ended up being Theo Weiss, who had been an OU guy.
He was a top recruit coming to high school.
He was a very high recruit. And he underachieved for 5 years.
Right.
And that last year at Missouri, when Burden had already had a giant year, I don't think that maybe a 6th-year guy who had underachieved would be a guy who does that. I don't know. But I would think, like, you're not going to go mess with him. You're worried about your own stuff.
Right. But then you get into an NFL locker room and you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb. It's like, hey, come on, bro. Let's, you have Dak Prescott as a leader on offense. You have guys like that that'll kind of, push you to kind of always want to be at the front of the line. Because here's the thing. If CeeDee's the 1 and Luther's the 2, and let's just use, for example, pat and go, throwing routes on air.
Don't pat the ball. Don't pat the ball.
Pat and go, routes on air, one-on-ones. When Dak Prescott comes up to go, here's who he's not looking to throw the ball to. Me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's watch out. Luther, let's go.
Yeah.
If I got 2 throws, my 2 throws are going to be CeeDee, Luther.
Right.
The Jesse Hollands of the world, you got to go with Joe Milton, and you got to go with
Will Greer, baby.
Will Greer. Like that's where you get your reps at. Right. So it's like you won't be allowed to lack in the back of the line. You won't be allowed to stay back there because Dak's going to be saying, like, if you guys are going to be the guys that I go to, I got 2 reps to this one. My 2 reps will go to these 2 guys. And then the next period, if I got 7 plays in a 14-play period, or I got 10 plays in a 14-play period, what I'm not trying to do is waste my 7 plays trying to figure out if
gonna be in the right place.
Flournoy is gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like I need to get the reps in with my new guy.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I've noticed as covering this team. Because back in the day, Troy's only throwing the top receivers. He only worked with the first team on the top receivers. Same thing with Tony. You know, he was not, and to your point, he was not throwing to the fourth and fifth receivers. He was only throwing to the 1 and 2s. Under Mike McCarthy, that's changed a little bit because Dak would throw to the other guys. You know, and that's something that's changed in training camp.
That's because there were no other good receivers.
Well, I understand that, but one point is, I'm saying I know Tony would only if Tony's up there is the starting receivers, the only ones he's throwing to. And that's his point. And I'm saying in the last couple of years of training camp, that's not been the case. Under Mike McCarthy, Dak would be throwing to the other guys, you know, and not just
my guy Jalen Cropper, baby.
You know, but
wasted rep.
But I would think he could use a Brandon Cooks, and I know because CD's kind of laid back too. I know he's the number one guy, but he's not a Brandon Cooks. You know, as far as the leader, as far as the receiver room, which is why they brought in Brandon Cooks. But hopefully CD's ready to take that next step and be that leader of the receiver room that could help a guy like that.
Paris Campbell got him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say we have to have a larger conversation.
You never know. You never know.
Not about Paris, but that.